The apocalypse came not with fire, but with water. A slow, inexorable drowning of the world when the arks were built. We drew lots for survival. Robert, my love, pressed his ticket into my hand and vowed. I will always protect you. Tears welled in my eyes, gratitude and grief swirling as one. But turning the corner, I saw them. Robert and Sarah, his first love, the one he'd never quite let go. He was smiling, his hand resting on the curve of her swollen belly. Don't worry, he murmured. I got her on board as fresh provisions when the ship's supplies run low. She'll sustain us through the voyage, then you and I can marry on dry land, start our family. Sarah laughed, cold and bright. She even saved her rations for you. Robert, how devoted. His voice softened. Cruel? No, she's the one who stole your chance at survival all those years ago. My breath caught. I saw then the faint, purpling marks around Sarah's throat. Evidence of a struggle I hadn't witnessed. If you hadn't fought for my ticket, Robert told her, pulling her close, I'd be dead in the water. I stepped back, my fingers trembling as I pulled up the ticket records on my device. He didn't know the ticket he believed Sarah had won for him. I was the one who'd secured it, risking everything in the chaos of the evacuation. In 2 weeks, Robert was saying, the ship will be out of food. We'll have to act then. My heart stuttered slowly. I crumpled the ticket record. Underneath lay another document. My late-stage diagnosis. Terminal. I'd fought not for my life, but for his. I'd planned to save my rations, to give him every scrap of hope, every chance. He never knew I was already dying. I just didn't expect that for Sarah. He wanted me to save my life for him, to take you. Forcing my hand, I closed my eyes and injected botulinum toxin into my arm. Eating it would kill me. Just as I finished the injection, the door burst open and Robert rushed in. Seeing how thin I was, my ribs showing, tears fell from his eyes. Susie, hurry and eat the bread they gave us. He shoved a hard piece of ark bread at me, holding the hard bread. I craned my neck and bit into it, chewing. Eat slowly, don't choke. Seeing my gaunt face, his fingers instinctively curled. Sarah, standing outside, saw this, and her face instantly darkened. She looked at the locket passed down from mother I wore and suddenly hooked her arms around Robert's neck. I want to play with this locket, he asked, pointing at the locket around my neck. She nodded. He slowly walked over. Had enough to eat. Take off the locket and give it to me. Sarah likes it. I lowered my head and glanced at the locket, instinctively reaching up to protect it. The locket pressed painfully against my emaciated chest bone. This was my mother's relic, tucked into my arms before she passed away after the Great Flood arrived. So many people on this ark offered boxes of food in exchange, but I never gave it away. What you don't want to give it. His face changed and he pulled out a boning knife, clutching the locket. I thought of what I had endured on the ark over the past half-month in this section of the ship. Whenever Sarah merely pointed at something, Robert would rip it off me to give to her. Last week, Sarah wanted the ring on my hand. I hesitated for only 2 seconds and he snatched it, breaking my finger and exposing the bloody bone splinters. And Sarah, after getting the ring, only glanced at it before throwing it into the floodwaters. I knew that if I didn't obey Robert this time, I would likely face cruel punishment again. Sarah wants to play with it. What are you toddling for? As soon as I moved my hand, he grabbed the locket and yanked it off. The cord left a bloody mark on my neck. I coughed twice and vomited dark blood. Sarah just glanced at the locket and tossed it into the floodwaters. Unfortunately, she cut her finger watching my mother's locket disappear into the water. I trembled uncontrollably like a sieve. Doctor, quick! Sarah is injured. Seeing the cut on Sarah's finger, he reacted as if facing a formidable enemy, turning to call the doctor. On board beside us, the George family members from the same section of the ship whispered among themselves, watching his expression. They all knew I was only on the ship because Robert had given me. I hadn't won a place, be drawing lots for a place on the ark, and now he was so obviously biased towards Sarah. Completely disregarding me, a massive yellow wave crashed onto the ship from outside, throwing me onto the deck where my head struck the surface, bleeding profusely. The ark's doctor came over to examine both Sarah and me, quickly bandaged Sarah's finger. Robert said anxiously. The doctor looked up. Miss Susan's injuries are more severe and her condition is very poor. Are you sure you don't want her treated first? Grandfather George on the deck nearby heard this and his voice was angry. Robert, what are you doing? Didn't you say you were going to marry Susan on the ship? Clutching Sarah's bleeding finger, his voice trembled. Sarah is weak. Treat her first. The ark's doctor looking at me with a bloody head, and Sarah hesitated for a moment. Miss Susan is in very bad shape. If she's not treated promptly, she might die. The doctor looked at him. Is she hiding some illness from you? She won't die. Treat Sarah first. His voice was decisive. I clutched the late-stage cancer diagnosis report in my pocket. Watching him silently, all I wanted to do was sneer. Half a month ago, I fainted from blood loss on the deck. Meanwhile, Sarah just had a cold and he treated it like a major crisis, carrying her to the infirmary and meticulously caring for her day and night. By the time he remembered me, my heart was already close to stopping. He called a shady doctor on the ship, threw me a few pills and left. I looked at him. Don't mind me. The esteemed Ms. Sarah's health is important, I said softly. Robert brought me on to the shife's already been very good to me. I won't die at this. The George family members on the deck began whispering among themselves. Grandfather George looked at him. His eyes dark. Robert's face instantly turned ashen and he turned to stare at me. Do you have any idea what Miss Susan sacrificed to get you on this ship? Grandfather George demanded, staring at him. What didn't I give her? The ticket? He turned and glanced at me. Grandfather George knew that I had risked my life to get the ticket for him. Without me, he would have died in the great flood below long ago. My gaze swept past Grandfather George, signaling him not to speak. Grandfather coughed angrily and said, "No more." Sarah nearby saw this scene and a smile played on her lips. At this point, the Ark's doctor, at Robert's insistence, finished treating Sarah. A thin layer of gauze was wrapped around her finger. Robert lowered his head and kissed her hand, then slowly stood up. He took the gauze and walked over, gently wrapping it around my forehead layer after layer. Looking at the wound on my forehead, he stroked it ever so lightly. Who told you to say that in front of grandfather? What if he blames me? He meticulously applied the medicine to my wound eye. With that, he grabbed the gauze and wiped forcefully blood as from my forehead, and I winced in pain. What? You love Sarah so much you won't let me speak, I said softly, seeing the blood seeping from my head. Robert's fingers instinctively curled, his eyes showing distress. Noticing his expression, Sarah clutched her finger again, looking at him pitifully. You deliberately sharpened the locket to scratch Sarah. Didn't you apologize to her? Robert said, coming over. Tears streamed down my face. That locket was given to me by my mother. I didn't sharpen it. Robert wouldn't let it go. Even the locket your mother left you, you used to sharpen and harm Sarah. You're truly vicious. Apologize quickly, he said softly, looking at Sarah over there. I trembled all over. Grandfather George saw this scene and walked over. Susie is injured so badly and you haven't even attended to her. What are you doing now? He reprimanded Robert, but Robert continued to press. May closed my eyes and looked around the crowded cabin. In the half-month on this doomsday ark, I've lost count off how many times I've had to apologize to Sarah. Last week, she wanted the canned fruit I was given. I was a second too slow in handing it over. Robert accused me of not being sincere and sliced my face with the sharp can lid and the canned fruit. Sarah only tasted a bit before telling Robert to throw it away. He didn't know that I had saved over a dozen cans of the monthly rations on the ark for him. I'm sorry, my locket was too sharp and accidentally scratched Mazara's hand. I bowed 90 degrees to apologize to Sarah. Seeing this, flames burned in Grandfather George's eyes. He knew I had risked my life to get Robert the ticket which saved his life. That's more like it. Watching the blood seep from my forehead, Robert's mouth twitch. He secretly slipped a bottle into my pocket, leaning in close. Don't talk like that. Grandfather George is so fooled by you. He keeps saying you did me a great favor. If he knew I was mistreating you, how would I explain it? Play along, you hear me? He said fiercely. I lay on the deck, tears streaming down. Then after I've played along, can I leave? I looked at him, seeing the bleeding on my knees. His chest visibly rose and fell, his eyes red-rimmed. At least wait until Sarah has her baby, he murmured, stroking her. I looked down at the cabin below the deck. Robert turned and walked up, embracing Sarah. She really thinks you were feeding her bread? Huh? Sarah said the ship's running out of food. Well, feed her a bit now so she can be our provisions later, Robert said, watching their intimate backs. I pulled my clothes tighter. A bottle rolled out of my pocket. It was styptic powder. Robert had obviously slipped it into my pocket. I quietly crumpled the late-stage cancer diagnosis report and tucked it deep into my pocket. He didn't know I was about to die and the food would be useless. I had saved enough food for him in the storeroom, enough for him to eat and survive until reaching land. But now he had to provide for Sarah and I couldn't provide for both of them anymore. Sarah's bleeding heavily. Hurry and come draw blood to save her in the ark's delivery room. Robert was frantic regardless of my body aching so much I couldn't stand. He ordered his henchmen to drag me over. Ms. Susan's condition is very poor. She definitely has a serious illness, the doctor said after examining me. Drawing more blood will kill her. She won't die. Just draw her blood quickly. He stared at Sarah, who was giving birth, and roughly pulled me over. Big handfuls of my hair were pulled out as I was dragged in. I vomited fresh blood. What's wrong with you? Didn't you use the medicine I gave you? Seeing the large clumps of fallen hair, He was also momentarily stunned. I turned my head and coughed up blood heavily. Robert. Sarah is having a baby. Are you trying to kill Ms. Susan? Grandfather George walked over. Do you have any idea how much she's done for you? Hearing this, Robert remained puzzled, but listening to Sarah's cries, he continued to drag me to the blood-drawing room. Drawing a little blood won't kill her. It's not like she hasn't been eating. My vision flickered black, and I was close to collapsing. Ms. Susan, didn't she eat the rations given out? Her condition is so poor, drawing even one tube of blood could kill her. The doctor said softly after examining me. How is that possible? She eats every day. Robert continued to drag me. Fell to the ground, looking towards the infirmary. He also didn't know that, sensing the food on the ship was running out day by day, I had long been saving my daily rations, intending to give them to him. I'm fine. Miss Sarah, giving birth is more important. I stood up and walked towards the blood-drawing room. I won't die, just draw a few more tubes of blood to save Miss Sarah. I looked at Robert. When I said this, the George family members on the ship began whispering among themselves, secretly looking at Robert. Grandfather George's eyes were even darker, practically burning with anger. I snatched the doctor's drawing needle and plunged it into my arm. Tubes of dark blood were drawn out one after another. This blood should be enough for Sarah during childbirth, Robert said softly. I pressed down on the doctor's needle, preventing him from pulling it out. Draw a few more tubes in case she bleeds again later. More dark blood was drawn out. My face turned pale, and I was about to collapse. If you keep drawing like this, you'll die. What are you doing? Robert stepped forward, pulled out the needle, and shoved me against the wall. Do you have to make grandfather see this and get me killed? You're willing to put on such an act, he said, wrapping gauze around my arm with a look of distress. After you've drawn all my blood, and Sarah has had her baby, can I leave? I asked softly, unlocking my phone to type the message. You re, that eager to leave me. The ship is tiny, and it's just floodwaters outside. Where would you go? Robert glared at me. At least wait until Sarah's child is a year old. He continued. Tears streamed down my face as I looked at the pale yellow floodwaters outside the Ark. I quietly send that message to Leo in another section of the ship. He asked anxiously, Susie, why is your heartbeat so weak? Where are you seeing the heart rate curve? He sent. A smile appeared on my face. The food I had saved in the storeroom finally had a purpose. Seeing the smile on my face, a hint of displeasure flashed across Robert's face. Who are you contacting now? I'm the one who brought you onto the ship. He stared at me. Robert looked at my back, completely unconcerned. Just then, Sarah's cries echoed from the delivery room along with the baby's wail. Hearing this, he immediately rushed in to embrace her. The two of them held the baby girl together, looking utterly devoted. I closed my eyes and wept silently. Late at night, after tucking Sarah and the baby into bed, Robert came over. He quietly stroked Miss Holder and handed me fruit and bread. The ship's food is getting scarcer by the day. You should eat more while you can. I lay weakly on the bed. The blood loss had caused my organs to fail. I could see my bones. It's none of your business. I turned away and continued messaging Leo on my phone. That doctor said you were hiding some illness from me and you haven't been eating. Robert continued. It's none of your business. I'm not sick, I said softly. Who is it? Robert said, catching a glimpse of my phone out of the corner of his eye. Seeing me chatting with Leo, he reached out to snatch it, but I dodged away. Who are you chatting with now? Some other guy, he said. Grandfather George talks about how much you've done for me, but I haven't seen it. If I told him you were secretly hooking up with other men, H probably beat you to death, he said, his voice full of disdain. It's none of your business. I continued, suddenly tucking the late-stage cancer diagnosis report deeper into my pocket. The next day he saw a post from him on the Ark's social feed. It was a photo of him and Sarah embracing. They smiled at the camera, holding their newborn daughter before the great storm of the end of the world. Thankfully, we still have each other. I liked the post with a cold smile. Hope you reach land and get married as you wish. Seeing my comment, Robert sent me countless messages. I didn't reply to a single one. Do you know how much effort I had to put into explain after Grandfather George saw your comment? The next day I received a warning from him on my phone. If you say things like that in front of the George family again, I'll throw you off the ship. I calmly swiped away and quietly duplicated the key to the storeroom. I slipped it into an envelope and gave it to Leo in another section of the ship. He had followed me before the flood. You don't need to give me so much food. I've already saved some for you, he said. He sent me a photo of the storeroom, shelves full of food. It was food he had originally saved for me. Looking at his ribs, as gaunt as mine, I managed a smile. Robert happened to push the door open. Seeing the smile on my face, his expression instantly darkened. So you were secretly saving food to give to some pretty boy in another section, he said softly. looking at the several boxes of bread I had taken out. Then he snatched them away. "No wonder you're so thin just as well. The ship is short on food, Sarah." "Just had a baby." He snatched the bread away and shoved me hard. I staggered back and hit the wall, blood streaming from the corner of my eye. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a survivor in the corner of the deck kicking another survivor. They were fighting and their food was thrown into the sea. Not a scrap left. The food reserves on the Ark were indeed running low. "Sarah's been lazy since giving birth. Come here and carry her to the deck to sunbathe on a rare sunny day." I lay on the deck covered in blood. Robert saw me and, ignoring my festering knees, grabbed me and dragged me away. By the time Grandfather George saw, he had already been dragged, leaving 2 long trails of blood reaching Sarah's door. "What are you doing, Robert?" Grandfather George shouted. The other George family members, faint with hunger, also turned their heads and whispered among themselves, "The esteemed Miss Sarah is weak after giving birth and needs careful recuperation." I said I volunteered to carry her out to sunbathe. Hearing this, the George family members started whispering again. They looked at my emaciated body and Sarah's rosy complexion, disgusting among themselves. "Are you forcing Ms. Susan to give her food to Sarah? This will kill her," Grandfather George said softly. I waved my hand at him, enduring the pain as I continued to lift Sarah. "If you say something like that again, I won't let you get away with it," Robert said, looking at me. "I am on this ship because Sarah risked her life to get the ticket." He kicked me hard in the stomach. "Otherwise we'd both be dead down there. What's wrong with you?" Suffering a little, I coughed up blood, but suddenly felt like sneering, clutching the ticket record in my pocket. Sarah saw this action and smiled. "The sun is good here. Quickly bring our baby out to sunbathe." Robert gently stroked Sarah and held the baby girl out to sunbathe. I looked at my bloody and bruised knees, tears streaming down. I remembered 2 weeks after getting on the ship, I hit a pillar, bled heavily and fainted, losing the baby. The moment I woke up on the operating table, Robert and Sarah were having an intimate moment in the cabin. Upon learning his daughter was lost, he casually threw me a heavy-duty bag to put the body in and didn't even show his face. He gently held Sarah, turning his head to watch the expression on my face. Seeing my face completely devoid of emotion, he suddenly felt a little annoyed. The reflection of the standing water in the deck allowed him to see my chat with Leo. "You're still chatting with men, sending them food. Don't you know everyone on the ship is starving?" he said. Angrily, "I didn't send food to anyone," I said softly. Just then, Sarah, whom I was carrying, suddenly cried out and leaned to the side. She cut her finger. "Susie, you wouldn't try to push me into the sea just because I had Robert's baby, would you?" she said, pleading with Robert. Seeing her bleeding finger, Robert immediately rushed over, carefully bandaging it with a look of distress. "Sarah saved my life. Are you trying to kill her?" he said fiercely, slamming me onto the deck. My forehead hit the surface and blood streamed out. "Look, she even stole my food to give to other men. She clearly wants me dead." Tears streamed down Sarah's face. I looked back. Robert's eyes were terrifying. I clutched the ticket record in my pocket, trembling all over. "First she stole my ticket and now she wants to steal my food. She's wanted me dead from the beginning," Sarah said softly, looking at my hand clenched in my pocket. "Then, well, just have to make sure she can never hold anything again." Hearing this, Robert took out a boning knife and pinned my hand to the deck. He aimed it at my fingers and plunged it down. I was in so much pain, I nearly fainted. All 5 fingers were bleeding profusely. Seeing Robert and Sarah turn away, I sent a message to Leo on my phone. "I'm on the deck in the east section." I woke up in the infirmary, my body aching all over. Just then Sarah walked over, looking at me with a playful smile. "So you were the one who stole my ticket, wanting to get on board alone," she said softly, holding the sachet my mother gave me in her hand. He looked at her. "I didn't steal your ticket, of course. I know that, but Robert doesn't understand," Sarah said, taking out the forged ticket record. "Hell, just think you stole my ticket and I've always been risking my life to save him and get him on the ship. Hell, know the truth eventually," I said quietly. "No, as long as you're dead, he won't know." Sarah threw the sachet onto the ground, stepping on her, and she suddenly leaned down. "When you stole the ticket to get on board, did you kick her into the water and climb on yourself?" Hearing this, I couldn't hold back any more and lunged at her. She shouted to her henchmen outside, "Quick, get her off me and get the ticket record from her pocket." I slammed her into a pillar. She fell to the ground and countless storage shelves collapsed on top of us. I kept struggling with her, not paying attention to the commotion outside. Orion was happening on the deck outside. Several survivors were fighting with Grandfather George, trying to steal food, but Robert was blocking them. Land was approaching, but the food had run out days ago. Not enough for everyone on the ship. Several gaunt survivors, crazed with hunger, heard the noise and rushed into the storeroom where Sarah and I were. They were already red-eyed with hunger. shouting frantically. Susie is still inside, I need to save her just then. Robert's shout was heard from outside. He was trying to rush in, held back by the George family member's young Master Robert. Those people are starving, and will kill. Don't go. And the George family members tried to. Sarah and I were trapped under the storage shelves. Hearing his voice, Sarah's face showed disappointment. I, however, sneered. Let him go, Grandfather George said, looking pleased. Robert pushed past the starving survivors and rushed into the storeroom, seeing both of us trapped. He didn't hesitate, turning to lift Sarah. Sarah, Grandfather was outside just now, that's why I shouted that. Don't mind it. As for me, crushed deeper down with a rebar piercing my ribs, he didn't even spare me a glance. Robert, she tried to push me into the sea just now and wanted to pull down the storage shelves. Tokel me, Sarah cried, buried in his chest. Then she deserves to die here. Let that starving mob eat her, Robert said, turning back to glare at me fiercely. He carried Sarah out and met Grandfather George's gaze. What, you didn't rescue him? As Susan, Grandfather George shouted at him. He hesitated. Sarah in his arms said, there's so little food on this ship. She's been clinging to you like this. Well, have to use her as provisions later. Anyway, so we should save her. Thinking of her and the child, Robert gritted his teeth and turned back into the ruins. Crawl out yourself. The starving mob has gnawed on you. I find you disgusting. He looked at me, not even offering a hand, enduring the pain. I pushed away the survivors. Wouldn't it be better for you if the starving mob ate me now? All the food I saved is yours. Seeing more and more hungry survivors gnawing at me, I was covered in blood and flesh. Robert came up and kicked away the starving mob, then violently yanked out the rebar from my abdomen. I vomited dark blood heavily and was pulled over. Are you crazy? If they gnaw on you like this, how can you be my provisions? He said coldly, pulling me out. If I hadn't gotten you out, you wouldn't be able to let Sarah and meet until we reached shore. I wouldn't have saved you then. Wasn't it better to let me be eaten to death? All the food I saved was for you. I continued. I don't want the food you saved for other men. He looked at me, gnawed and bloody all over his heart, inexplicably aching. Can't bring yourself to do it now, huh? I managed a smile. He dragged me onto the deck. What are you standing there for? Aren't you coming back to the cabin with me? Sarah stared at him. Why are there so many tears on your face? Robert froze for a moment, then let go, and I slid onto the deck. He turned and looked in the mirror. Only then, realizing that he had been crying without knowing it, he looked down at me, saw the massive wound on my abdomen, and his right hand fingers clenched sharply. All right. Well, go back. Seeing Sarah's displeasure, he quickly picked her up and walked back. How strange. I clearly wanted to harm Sarah and he no longer cared about me, but why was he still crying? It must have been raining on the ark. He looked up. The sky was clear and pale. Eat quickly or you'll starve to death, and won't be any Goudas provisions, he said softly, comforting Sarah until she fell asleep. I turned away, listening to the commotion outside the cabin. A riot was happening on the deck. Your child is almost a year old, isn't she? Can I leave now? I unlocked my phone and messaged Leo in another section before I could send it. I received his anxious question first. Susie, why is your heartbeat so weak? Leo asked. A lot of people here are fighting over food. Are you okay? Where are you? I quietly sent back. I'm in the E section. Robert saw this action, and his face darkened. Who are you trying to seduce now? He kept saying it's none of your business. I turned away just then. Sarah woke up. He glanced at me with displeasure, then immediately turned to help her up. She wanted to crush you, he said, embracing Sarah. In a few days when the provisions are gone. Well, kill her, but I'm still scared. Scared shell. Throw me into the sea again. She buried her head in his arms. He stroked her affectionately while observing my expression. Seeing my calm face, he suddenly became very annoyed. You've been chatting with a man in another section. Are you plotting to harm Sarah? Seeing me messaging Leo again, he said softly. Just then, a scream echoed from outside the cabin and Sarah deliberately coughed something up, revealing a mouth full of blood. Robert. She put poison in the bread again. Look, she handed him the piece of bread. Robert saw it and realized it was bread taken from my storeroom. Without Sarah, I would have died in the great flood long ago, and you still want to harm her? Without waiting for me to explain, Robert shoved me to the ground. My forehead hit the deck and streams of blood flowed out. She's so vicious, I'm still scared, Sarah said again. I looked up and saw the bread she had faked with blood break. Her legs shall be on shore in 2 days anyway, Robert said. Just don't kill her. Sarah heard this, slowly nodded, and a smile appeared at the corner of her mouth in the storeroom below the deck. Sarah looked at me lying on the bed, a smile on her face. She held a boning knife in her hand and slowly walked over. It's a pity Robert doesn't know that you were the one who risked your Lafito get the ticket and save him all along. She walked closer, smiling. A henchman pulled at my pocket. And a late-stage cancer. diagnosis report fell out, and you knew you had cancer. That's why you deliberately came on the ship with him. You wanted to starve yourself to death and give him the food. She said slowly, how touching. What do you want? I quietly felt my collar adjusting the pinhole camera. I had already turned on. The Ark is about to reach shore. Sarah, Sadie can't afford any mistakes if you die. Robert will never know the truth, she said. The truth about you risking your life to get him well. Get married on land and have children, living a happy life. Her henchman came up and held me over the deck, about to push me down below, separated by a railing dozens of meters down with a starving mob crammed together reaching up. Let them eat you, it's better than dying of cancer. She said anyway, we have enough. I close my eyes and send the video recording on my phone to Leo first, expose it to Grandfather George, then expose it to everyone on the ship. Then I was pinned down by several henchmen. Just then, the door opened and Leo rushed in. But it was already too late. Several henchmen had already shoved me downwards. I plunged towards the surging mass of the starving mob. So many people died in the lower cabins, Robert said, on a sunny day, embracing Sarah. Luckily, Susie saved so much food for you we were able to eat until now, she said with a light laugh. Just then, Grandfather George slowly walked up the stairs, his face dark. Robert, have you found Miss Susan? And you're eating the saved food here with her? Haven't found her, Robert said. She tried to steal Sarah's ticket back then and tried to throw her into the sea. He said softly, what's wrong with us eating some of her food? Then, where is she? Aren't you going to find her? Grandfather George said softly, don't you know what a huge sacrifice she made for you to get on this ship and survive? Didn't Sarah risk her life to get me on? What does it have to do with her? Robert muttered. Just then, a henchman came over. According to your orders, Ms. Susan has been thrown to the starving mob and eaten to death. Grandfather George on the other side nearly fainted. Hearing this, Robert stumbled. What? Who told you to kill her? The henchman looked at him, then glanced at Sarah. What? Wasn't that your order? Seeing this, Robert understood. He looked at Sarah. Didn't we agree to just break her hands? We needed to keep her alive for provisions. Didn't she save enough food for you? You don't need her for provisions. Sarah. Sadie was afraid if she stayed alive. Shed revealed the truth on land. Turning to look at the starving mob in the lower cabin, Robert's hands trembled uncontrollably. He turned his head, meeting Grandfather George's angry gaze. Don't you know that Miss Susan risked her life for the ticket to get you onto the Ark? Grandfather George said, looking at him. Otherwise, you would have died long ago. Grandfather George unlocked his phone, showing a video recording. What? Hearing this, Robert looked up before he could see it. He also received a video recording on his phone. He opened it and it was a conversation between Sarah and me. It's a pity Robert will never know, not even when he dies, that you were the one who risked your life to get him onto the ship. Sarah said, the ticket he gave her, his own ticket. You were the one who risked your life to get them. Sarah laughed, tears in her eyes. You knew you had cancer from the start and you planned to save provisions for him. To save him, she continued to walk over. He believed my lies and kept tormenting you. He even wanted to use you as provisions. She said, he doesn't know that you didn't steal my ticket. I made it all up. Saying this, she motioned for her henchmen to come over and surround me. I'm not doing anything, she said. If you die, hell never know the truth. Several henchmen came. Yupan began to push me towards the dark mass of the starving mob below. The moment I was pushed down, Robert trembled all over. Do you know now Ms. Susan was the one who risked her life to get you onto the ship over there? Grandfather George said fiercely, you killed her. Robert turned, his eyes bloodshot, looking at Sarah. You've been lying to me all along. That's fake, she said, her face already deathly pale. Then what's this? He unlocked his phone. It was a ticket record of me securing a ticket. He snatched the ticket record from Sarah's hand, comparing it to mine. Hers was clearly fake. I always believed you risked your life to get me on the ship. Turns out you were lying to me all along, he said. The one who saved my life was Susie. He kicked her head hard. She hit the wall and bled profusely. Don't believe Hershey was also saving food for other men, she said weakly, lying on the ground. Robert's face turned ashen and he knelt down. I'm sorry, Susie, he cried, remembering their past moments. His eyes bloodshot. He received another late-stage cancer diagnosis report on his phone. Seeing it, he nearly fainted. It turned out that the moment I got on the ship, I had already prepared to sacrifice myself. It was all to save food for him to survive. But he, believing Sarah's lies, had tormented me constantly. He regretted it and banged his head against the ground, bleeding. Did you know Susie had cancer? He stared at Sarah. She lay weakly on the ground. Yes, I knew as sincerely as when you hammered nails through her fingers. Robert's heart trembled again. When he heard this, you made me kill her. He lunged forward and kicked her onto the deck. Her forehead hit the metal plate. creating a large bloody gash, and she almost fainted for her. "You don't even want the child you fathered," Sarah chased after him from behind, grabbing him. He flung her away again, her head hitting a steel spike, drawing blood. "Get out before I throw you to that starving mob," Robert said fiercely. "Susie saved my life. She's my wife. You slut made me torment her all this time," he said viciously. Picking up a nail and driving it into her fingernail, she screamed, the smell of blood attracting the starving mob on the deck below. "Susie, where are you?" "I'm sorry," he cried, turning to search the infirmary, frantically looking everywhere, but he found no trace of me. Only sheets covered in blood. He suddenly remembered his chat with Leo. He had a premonition that I was pushing open the door to the storeroom. He saw the shelves full of saved food. It was all food I had saved for him, remembering the handfuls of hair I lost, the blood I vomited, and my emaciated ribs. It turned Udi knew I had cancer and wanted to starve myself to leave the food for him. "I'm sorry, Susie." He knelt on the ground, crying out to the sky. Looking down at the crowd on the deck below, he didn't see my shadow. I must have faked my death. He still had a chance to win me back. It had to be. Robert turned around, looking at the faint land visible ahead of the deck. The Ark was finally reaching shore. He still had a chance to go to land and marry me. He turned and hung Sarah up, hammering nails into her fingers one by one, leaving them bloody and bruised. "That's for lying to me, for making me torment Susie." He hung Sarah upside down towards the deck below, where countless hungry survivors stood up and beefterward, under Grandfather George's gaze. He took a knife and cut open his own skin, bleeding profusely. He took photos of himself and sent all those videos and photos to me one by one. Then he sent me countless messages. "Susie, where are you? Please forgive me." Didn't reply to any of them, seeing Sarah about to be beaten to death by the starving mob below. He sat on the ground in tears, weeping. Suddenly, he remembered Leo's phone number. He found Leo's number on a notepaper and called. After countless tries, it finally connected. "Is Susie there?" "I'm sorry," he cried, lowering his head. Leo looked at him coldly. "What? She risked her life to save food for you, and you want to keep harming her?" Hearing this, he lowered his head. In the distance, the Ark broke through the clouds, revealing land. "Susie, I've already fed Sarah to the starving mob. Of you also had those henchmen who harmed you taken care of. Please forgive me," he cried, picking up the food. "I'll give you all the food. We're about to reach shore. Let's start over on land, okay?" Hearing his voice, I closed my eyes. "They've all been punished, but what about you?" I looked at him, my smashed hands, the baby I lost. "Can you give those back to me?" Hearing my voice, a glimmer of hope appeared in his eyes, but then he lowered his head, unable to speak for a long time. "You were the one who risked your Lafito. Get me onto the ship. I'm sorry," he cried. "Please forgive me. I'll give you everything. Let's get married on shore." He saw the section of the ship behind me and hope surged in his eyes. "Which section are you in?" "I'll come find you right away." "No need," I said with a cold laugh. "Go find your Miss Sarah." Instead, she just had a baby. Hearing this, a bitter smile appeared on his face, and he froze. "You're kidding, right, Susie?" He feigned tease. "You still love me. We said wed, go to land and get married together. Get lost," I said coldly. Behind me, Leo walked up and put his arm around my waist. "Forgot to tell you, Leo and I are getting married on shore," I said softly. Seeing this, he froze completely. His body trembled uncontrollably. "You saved my life. Don't you love me anymore?" He cried out. "The thing I regret doing the most was risking my life for the ticket to get you onto the ship," I said softly. "Back then, I should have let you die in the floodwaters." He staggered and fell heavily on the deck. "I don't love him." When the great flood of the end of the world came, I was the one who risked my life to get him a ticket, saving his life. And after getting on the ship, when I learned I had cancer, I decided to save all the food for him to eat from beginning to end. My primary consideration was for him to survive. Everyone in the George family, especially Grandfather George, knew how much I loved him. But what about him? He believed Sarah's lies, had all 10 of my fingers nailed. Dandered his henchmen to push me into the starving mob, nearly killing me. Everything he did had completely exhausted all the love I had for him, turning it into hatred. He lay on the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. "Susie, you always wanted to save my life. I'm sorry," he cried, stumbling towards me. Looked at him, not a trace of hesitation, and turned away. Ending the video call. This was the west section of the Ark. The sun was bright and the bow had already reached shore. Leo held me gently and said, "We're almost at Noah Centerwell. Get married on shore." I nodded, feeling my body lighter the moment Sarah's henchmen were about to push me into the starving mob. Leo rushed in and grabbed me. Then he bribed the henchmen to fake my death. After that, he brought me to this hidden section of the ship here, under the care of the medical system. My injuries gradually healed. The cancer was also contained, and I could finally catch a glimpse of land. Miss Susan Robert is an animal, don't let him bother you. Grandfather George sent me countless messages. I know you've done everything you could for the George family. Looking at his messages, I just sneered in the distance. The sunlight of land began to rise, illuminating the countless emaciated bodies on the deck. This 231-day doomsday float was finally over. The big ship gradually approached shore where countless survivors were waiting to greet us. A grand wedding hosted by the Leo family was waiting for us on shore. I held Leo's arm and looked towards the long red carpet on land on both sides. The Leo family members were cheering and applauding, waiting for us to walk through the wedding hall. Leo and I kissed under their gaze. Just then, a commotion suddenly erupted on the deck. Behind us, Susie is my wife. I won't allow you to get married. It was Robert. He stumbled through the crowd, shouting. Seeing him, I instinctively hugged Leo. Behind me, Susie doesn't want to see you get lost. Leo said coldly. Susie, I know you won't forgive me, he cried, taking out a black bag, but I still want to make it up to you. You saved my life. These are all the George family's properties on land. And here's the locket for you. I have nothing left. Please forgive me, he cried, pulling open his clothes to show his body covered in scars. Forgive me, Susie. I took the bank cards from the black bag, glanced at them and threw them away. A photo of us from the past fluttered out sturdy. I stared at him. Leave from the moment you harmed me on the ship. I will never forgive you. Leo came up behind me and gently stroked my swollen belly. Seeing this, Robert froze, tears streaming down his face. I turned and walked towards Lon in Leo's embrace. The wind had stopped. The clouds had cleared and people were stirring. The crowd behind me erupted in chaos. Susie, you saved my life. I'll give you my heart back, okay? I turned my head in front of everyone. He actually took out a knife and cut open his own chest, blood splattering. He murmured, looking at me, please forgive me, Susie. Lunatic. I turned and walked off the ark with Leo, stepping onto the long red carpet. As I walked, Leo lifted me into his arms. People cheered on both sides on the ark behind us. The starving mob, smelling blood, climbed out and swarmed Robert, gnawing at him. A slender, bloody hand emerged from the pile of bodies, picking up the photo